It is difficult to stand in spaces that weren't designed for me, spaces that were not created for people that look like me, spaces that scream, "You do not belong here," spaces that feel like sandpaper against my blackness, coarse and rough and painful and uneasy, spaces that are void of signs, but still I can see them hanging in a not so distant memory. Signs that separated water fountains and restaurants, blatantly reminding people that these spaces were not made for them. And although the signs no longer remain, the architecture and atmosphere is constructed in such a way that I know and we know that these are not our spaces. We are simply standing in borrowed time to entertain the master's masses. It is difficult to stand in these spaces and be me, fully me. Code switching my vernacular to make you feel comfortable. Why must my life dress itself up in discomfort for you to feel at ease? Why must my hair look a certain way in these spaces? Why is my gender an issue in these spaces? Why does my skin feel so heavy in these spaces? You see, these are spaces I no longer want to reside in. I do not enjoy being in these spaces. I no longer want to subject myself to these spaces, but then I am reminded. As I stand in these spaces and I see the faces of these two little Black girls watching me perform in awe, because I am a woman with kinky hair like them and skin that looks like theirs and lips that look like theirs, standing in these spaces. Spaces that have been designed in ways that have spoken to them at an early age, reminding them, baby, some spaces just ain't for your kind. You see that? It's why I'm in these spaces being a shout in these spaces. It is for every Black person that has ever entered a room and wondered, would anyone look like them in these spaces? It is for every LGBTQ person that has wondered, could they safely be themselves in these spaces? It is for every woman that has stood at the head of a boardroom table wondering, would she be considered equal in these spaces? It is for every Muslim woman that has wondered, could she wear her hijab in these spaces? You see, I remember those that stood in spaces not made for them, that marched on roads not paved for them, that sat down on seats in buses not earmarked for them, that sat down at counters and endured the humiliation of sitting in spaces so that one day I too could stand in these spaces. You see, that is why I'm in these spaces. It is for everyone that came before me, that sipped water at the colored only fountain, that marched into integrated schools and knew they would be just one of 9. It is for every Black performer that stood on stages so that one day little Black kids could know that they too could stand on these stages. It is for my mother that stood in the space of a cotton field picking cotton for 80 cents a day. It is for everyone that will come after me, for them to know that they have a right to be in these spaces, to have a seat at the table, in these spaces, to have a voice, in these spaces, to have influence, in these spaces. You see, that is why I stand in these spaces even when it makes me uncomfortable. And now some of you sit looking at me, and now you feel uncomfortable. But today you have heard me. You cannot unsee me. In this space, I belong. In this space, we are here, and we belong here in this space. Dawn, the first appearance of light, the beginning, birth, inception, genesis, an emergence, an arrival, an appearance, to begin, to start, to be born, to appear, to arrive, to rise, to break, to unfold, to develop, to become evident to the mind, be perceived or understood. Every day that we awake, it is a new dawn, a chance to start over, to begin again. Every day that we awake, it is a day to birth something new, to show patience, to love, to forgive, to understand, to try, to heal, to lose ourselves, to find ourselves, to dream, to dance, to believe, to show compassion, to say I'm sorry, to breathe, to exhale, to take it all in and dare to take a chance. What is your new day? And what is your new dawn? What awaits you on the horizon of change? You see, hope begins in the dark. It is the stubborn hope that if you just show up and try to do the right thing, then the dawn will come. So you wait and you watch and you work and you don't give up. What could we be if we weren't afraid? And who could we be if we loved? If we embraced our differences? If we celebrated our uniqueness? If we chose to disregard our fear and love anyways? What could we be? And what could we accomplish? Didn't you ever dream of flying? If you take my hand, together we can. Nothing would be impossible if we stood together. A new day awaits us, and all we have to do is rise and greet the dawn. I love me. The words are trapped in my mouth as I see my reflection. I choke on the thought that I could actually love myself, that I could speak those words out loud and birth them into the universe, that I could conjure up the belief that I am lovable and let I love me flow from my lips. The words are like thick paste swirling over my tongue, the thought hard to swallow and even harder to regurgitate and say, I love me. So I mouth them slowly, watch my lips form the words, almost afraid to look at my reflection in the mirror. It is wrong to love me. I've convinced myself because my life has been tainted that loving me is not an option. You see, I had self-love stolen from me in an instance when I thought I could love. So instead of loving me, I hated me. And my mind constantly reminded me that I was unworthy of self-love. Because who could ever love me when I reeked of self-hate, which permeated my inner self? And the stench of my hungover past, it oozed from my pores like leprosy and infected anyone that came near me with my inner negativity. Yet I whisper them, I love me. And still my conscience is not so convinced or even mildly persuaded. How could I believe that I was lovable when my soul bore graffiti like a New York subway with words unmentionable? And the question rings out again, do you love yourself? The question clouded by memories that I fought to forget, yet they linger over my conscience, reminding me that I am unworthy of self-love. So I attempt to meet the question with more deceit. You see, lying to myself is sadly commonplace. The outward mask of who I am once concealed my fear and my pain and my frustration. I lied to myself for so long that for a brief second, I believed those lies and could not face the truth of my self-sabotaging behavior. As I look beyond my exterior and gaze into my interior, I can no longer conceal my truth. I do not recognize this decoy staring back at me. She is my social doppelganger. The woman that smiles and pretends that in her outward beauty she is confident, but you see inwardly, she and I know she is broken. I cannot lie to her because her eyes are my eyes, and she is on display, surface attributes faded away. There are no adornments here. Broken, discouraged, confused, lonely, raw, open, honest, just me in my reflection. So I say them out loud. I love me. The words foreign to my ears, a voice of strength and courage, a voice I do not recognize. I am lovable. You are lovable, Hannah. And I fight, and I fight, and I fight daily through the tears to believe that I am worthy of loving myself, disregarding the tears that fall silently on my face, because in one word, acceptance, I can see that I am lovable. Allowing acceptance of my imperfections, knowing that imperfections makes life interesting, makes life worth living, makes life worth loving, makes me worth loving. I am lovable. Recognizing that no one can love me better than I love myself, because I've been given beauty for my bruises, that my storms only allowed my destiny to be irrigated until fruition, that my pain was to reveal my divine purpose, that my weaknesses allowed me to become strong, that the scars that crisscross and form calluses over my soul were only to make me stronger. My flaws are a sign of triumph. My pain, now a symbol of victory. Do you love yourself? This time, the answer is not shadowed by lies, but spotlighted by the truth. Yes, I do. So I shout them. I love me.